Thursday, March 12th. This is the monthly DBA meeting. We're at Eastern Bank, and thanks to Sharon Cronin for hosting us here.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
I'm Terry Ryber, the president of DBA. Sharon, would you like to come up and say a few words, introduce a few people?
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Yes, you do.
Okay.
Welcome everyone. Oh, there's more AC over here too, so this is nice.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone. It's nice to see everyone who was able to show up tonight. Welcome to Eastern Bank. As a lot of you know, what's nice is I know every one of you here in the room. My first time meeting Representative Webster. Thank you and welcome. Thank you for joining us. And we're really happy to see everyone come out to the DBA and support the community. And that's what Eastern Bank is really about, building relationships and being present in our communities and helping you in the best way we can as small business owners, some larger business owners. So whatever we can do, we're always happy to talk to you folks. And I just want to introduce a colleague of mine, Scott Stevenson. He is the regional manager for this area, so he's out to support us as well because it's very important to him as he manages this whole area, but he likes to get out and meet folks in the community as well. So just wanted to introduce Scott and thank him for coming.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming. And just to mimic Sharon's words, Eastern Bank's about the community, about getting out there, meeting people one-on-one. We think we do a nice job to try to help people reach their dreams. And if there's anything we can do to help you, please call Sharon or myself. Thank you.
Okay, thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks for hosting. Okay, next we have John Mattes is going to talk about Duxbury, which is our next monthly meeting, and it's also our annual exhibition.
There we go. Thank you, Terry. We're going to have a special consumer-only trade show coming up in about a month's time. It's going to be Thursday, May 10, and these are the posters that we've been putting up around town. Special thanks to Laura over the DBMS who actually printed these up for us. We have 25 exhibitors. The last one is Sharon. Sharon just got the last table tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
And we're going to have area restaurants supporting us. Thank you, Debbie, from French Memories and from Farfar's and Snug Harbor Fish Company and Depot Street Market. It's going to be a wild night. We're going to have raffles every 15 minutes. Everyone, it's free admission. When you come in, you're going to be entered into a raffle for different prizes from the different exhibitors. And we have the roving microphone coming around, and it should be just a lot of fun. Wine and beer, cash, bar, as I mentioned, refreshments. So, again, PAC TV, and PAC TV will be there as well. And they're an exhibitor, so it's a great thing. Again, it's 5:30 to 8 o'clock on Thursday night, May 10, and everyone's invited, so it should be a great night.
Yeah, thanks, John.
Thank you.
Awesome job.
Everybody wants an extra poster.
I do. I can put one in the museum. I have
Sure.
some, thank you.
Yeah, there's also posters available online. You can download them and print them,
You
but
need more.
we'll definitely get more posters. Also, I think there's an interview with yourself and Nancy Richard, which
Nancy
we'll
Richard.
be sending out. I think it's about a 6-minute interview. And John's turning out to be a real television star. I'm starting to get a bit jealous, actually.
Face made for radio.
Yeah. Our next speaker will be Representative Dan Webster, and he represents Duxbury, Pembroke, and Handsome. He's going to speak for a few minutes, give us an update on what's going on at the State House, as well as issues affecting small business, and then he's going to be open for questions, so we'll have a bit of a question and answer period.
Thank you.
Glad to have you here.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's great to come. I was actually at a luncheon this afternoon at the South Shore Chamber of Commerce, and Governor Patrick spoke. And I knew this already, but one of the things I learned is groups like this really want to ask questions, and believe me, they had a lot of questions for the governor. So I won't go on and on and on. I'd rather give you the opportunity to ask me what you want to hear about. But just briefly, it's a very busy time at the State House right now. We're preparing to, or at least the House is anyway, is preparing to enact our version of the state budget next week. The budget was just released from the Ways and Means Committee yesterday. We're in the process of ferociously trying to file amendments. We only have 48 hours to go through a document that's over 1,000 pages and decide what amendments we want to file to the budget. And if they're not filed by 5 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, you're out. Too bad. So it's a busy time of the year. I will say, over the last couple of years, we've all been in a difficult economic situation, and I know you particularly as business people know that much better than some others. And I will say that the legislature has done a couple of good things in the last year, I think, or in the last couple of years, to try to help not only local businesses but communities cope with the difficult economy that we're all faced with. After passing the most massive tax increase in the history of the Commonwealth back in 2009, we are going into our third budget cycle now, where there are no new proposed taxes or fees on the table. And I'm sure that is encouraging to all of you, because I'm certainly of the philosophy that when we're in an economic downturn the way that we are right now, and we have not come out of it yet, as you all well know, the worst thing that we can do is raise taxes and raise revenues. It stimulates, it hampers job growth. And ultimately that's what we want to do, is create jobs, put people back to work. And once we've got people working and paying income taxes at a reasonable level, that helps government get out of the mess that it's in. We're always the last one in and the last one out, and that's where we are at the cycle right now. We haven't raised fees and we haven't raised taxes, and there are no proposals, at least in the House budget, to do that this year. We passed last year what's called municipal health care relief, which allowed cities and towns to take some of the collective bargaining rights away from public unions with respect to health insurance, and that will save the cities and the towns in Massachusetts well in excess of $100 million annually. And as we move forward and get further and further along, we're into a situation where the communities have the ability to participate in the state insurance pool and force the unions to do that, that will save more and more money down the road. Where I think the legislature has really failed since this recession came on a couple of years ago, really back in 2008, is its efforts to try to promote job growth. And I suppose arguably the one initiative that we have passed, and this is controversial in itself, is the casino gambling bill. There's no question that will create some jobs, not only once the casinos are built and up and running, but it will create construction jobs as the big casino companies come in and bid for the casino licenses and eventually move forward with the development of their facilities. But that is minor in comparison to the number of jobs that have been lost really since the last recession that ended in 2002, that occurred in 2002 and 2003. We lost about 180,000 jobs in that recession. That grew to over 200,000 jobs in this recession, and we certainly haven't gained those jobs back. We've got an unemployment rate in Massachusetts that's just under 7% right now. You'll hear a lot of folks on Beacon Hill claim victory because our unemployment rate is not as high as it is in other parts of the country, but I don't find that acceptable. Before the recession hit, unemployment in Massachusetts was less than 4.3%. So we've got a long way to go before we restore a healthy job market back to our state. And when we talk about an unemployment rate in Massachusetts that's about 6.8%, that's based on the number of people that are out actively looking for work, reporting to the Division of Unemployment Assistance that they're looking for work. There are a lot of people, frankly, at the state level, just as there are at the national level, that have given up and aren't looking for work, and those numbers are not reflected in the unemployment rate. So in some of the more urban areas of the state, I think unemployment is probably more around 10 or 11% than it is about 6.8%. Having said that, some of my colleagues and I in the legislature have put forth a jobs proposal. And the jobs proposal is aimed at reducing the tax burden on businesses, trying to create incentives for students that are in our secondary or in our higher ed educational system, whether it's community colleges or our state colleges and universities, to make it palatable for them to not only receive affordable education in Massachusetts, to stay here and graduate from our institutions, but also to stay in the job force here in our state and hopefully create opportunities for them and get them working as well. One of the things that I think, I could talk for a long, long time about the jobs package, and I won't do that because, again, I want to let you ask questions. I'm just going to highlight a couple of the issues. And I think one of the issues that might be interested to you as small business people is how many people of you are familiar with the independent contractor law? Okay, Paula and a couple of others. That was changed in 1990 in Massachusetts, and virtually it's impossible right now for a small business to hire an independent contractor without the fear of being accused of having somebody on the payroll who they should be collecting income or employment taxes from and paying to the Department of Revenue. We're trying to relax that law right now. One of the reforms that we've put forth is a definition of an independent contractor that is much more broad than the one that exists now on the laws of the Commonwealth, particularly in a situation where small businesses are struggling, may not be able to afford to hire full-time people. At least we could be putting people to work on a contract basis. And many small businesses, including mine, because I run a small business, are afraid to do that for fear of the ramifications that may come along from the Department of Revenue if a determination is made that somebody doesn't fit into the tight hole that we have created for ourselves under the independent contractor law in Massachusetts. I hear about that issue a lot from the South Shore Chamber of Commerce as well as from the Metro South Chamber of Commerce. Both Chamber of Commerces who I have relationships with and towns that I represent are involved in. So hopefully we can convince the legislature that that will be a good direction to move in. One of the things that I think we need to do in Massachusetts is, if we really want to talk about creating jobs and getting our local economy moving again, is I've got a bill pending in the legislature right now that would lower the corporate income tax to 5%, and it would create a flat corporate tax for all industries in the Commonwealth. Right now there are graduated corporate tax rates, and I think the minimum corporate tax rate in Massachusetts is about 7.5%. That would be a real direct shot in the arm to businesses if we could say to them, we're going to reduce your tax rate to 5%. To some companies, to some small companies, that would mean they could hire another 1 or another 2 employees. To some medium-sized companies, that would mean they could probably add quite a few more than 1 or 2 more employees. And that's what it's all about right now, is getting people back to work and, again, getting them paying taxes at a reasonable rate, which will help the state out of the fiscal mess that we're in right now. So that's more or less what's happening on Beacon Hill. I could spend hours talking about the budget, and I won't do that. It's very interesting, but I don't want to bore you to death. So does anybody have any questions? I'm sure you do.
How long before we get the state sales tax, since we were talking before about getting it back to where it was actually legislated to be, what was it, 5 years ago?
Well, I would not want to prognosticate and put a date on that. All I could say to you is, remember when the voters voted back in 2000 to roll the income tax from 6.25 back to 5%? Well, that's never happened. So
exactly,
it's difficult. The legislature is very, it's a more liberal-minded legislature. It's very reluctant once it increases taxes and the economy gets better to roll taxes back. Now, we have rolled back the income tax from, I think in the early 1990s, it went up as high as 6.25%. We brought it back to as low as 5.3%. There was a bill that the Republicans put forth a couple of years ago that was adopted that in essence said that if tax revenues got to a certain benchmark, our tax rate would roll back 0.1%. That actually happened this past January, and the income tax rate did roll back 0.1%. I've supported an amendment in the budget that would roll the sales tax back to 5% in increments over a 3-year period. So we'll see how that goes in another couple of weeks when we debate it on the floor of the House. I would not be overly optimistic about it passing.
Can you clarify for me? I started to notice lately, I've been paying 99 cents or $1 for something, and they'll say 99 cents, that's $1.06, or it's $1, that's $1.07. And so I'm kind of like, okay, I'm confused. If the tax rate is 6.25, why is it always rounded up? And where does, and you may know as a retailer, where does that extra 75 basis points go. So are we really paying a 7% tax, and we have been fooled to think we're paying a 6.25?
Right. That's an excellent question, and I don't know if it somehow falls, if it's somehow absorbed in the pricing by the retailer. In other words, they set the price so that it's actually a little more than what they advertise it's paying, or whether, I don't think that the Department of Revenue is collecting the extra 75 basis points.
Do you know?
Well, my husband could tell you more exact. However, I know that if it's not exactly correct, what we do for our sales, taxable sales versus non-taxable sales, we have to make sure the correct percentage works, even though there's that fine line. It doesn't always work because of you know, employee discounts, et cetera, but it's supposed to be taxed on the full amount and then the discount given. So we ended up paying more tax than we were supposed to, and then it was very confusing because our actual sales versus the taxable sales, it got very confusing. So when we did get an audit, it was, you know, it was a nightmare for my
Well, you're
husband.
probably just in the middle,
Yeah.
but the
Well, yeah.
consumer's paying the full 7%.
That's
Well,
correct.
you know, but we have different locations, they have different tax rates. We have
Even in
Boston that has a
Massachusetts.
different tax rate. I mean, and Sharon, I think Duxbury has a little bit less, because I think each town can choose to go up in their tax.
Oh, if you're doing the meals tax. Yeah, Duxbury doesn't have a meals
Right.
tax.
You know, well, I don't know, I think you're
No.
wrong.
It hasn't gone to the voters.
Okay, what we have, as long as you sell coffee in an establishment, that you automatically have to pay the meals tax.
But
So
there's
it gets
different- the
really
difference is-
fine line, like our cheese and pate isn't taxed, but 6 items or more is not taxed, but
Yeah, but
5
yeah.
less are taxed.
A lot of bean
because-
counting in your.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So it's either a meal or it's a grocery in our business, so it gets really confusing, so.
Yeah.
So yeah, yes,
Well, no,
because of
but the
that
meals tax,
coffee.
what I'm talking about is different. A lot of towns have said, we're gonna charge a meals tax of 7% as opposed to the
Oh,
62.25.
no,
Duxbury hasn't done that.
right, right, we still have that.
But we still-
Whereas
That's
some
the
of our
local
other
option
locations-
meals tax that
Yeah.
the
In our
legislature
other
passed about
locations,
4 years ago.
Like Sharon has different,
that part,
Chester
yeah.
Hill has different,
Yeah.
Boston, so everyone has
I
different.
get you.
But my concern is what's going to happen about the sick pay for small businesses. Where do we stand on that right now? Because
Big issue.
for us, if somebody calls in sick, we have to get another employee to cover, and then that means we're paying 2 times. And we're not big enough to pay 2 times, you know, and some
You should
people.
be very concerned about this.
Right, so that's a major concern for us. And we know it's still being battled right now. We don't know where you stand or where we stand or.
Well, I'm certainly not in favor of it. The governor is absolutely in favor of it. He talked about it today at the South Shore Chamber of Commerce. If I would be surprised if the legislature embraced that, however.
Can you just explain
But-
what it is? Because I'm sure most of the room doesn't even know that it's out there as a.
Sure. What the bill, in essence, what the bill would do is require businesses to pay, if someone's on sick leave, to pay them while they're out on sick leave, which there's no law on the books right now that requires that.
Yeah.
Some,
Even for hourly employees?
Yeah.
yes.
Sick,
Part-time?
mandatory sick time for everyone.
However, I think
There are
we're talking
different
about
versions
sizes
of the
of
bill.
businesses.
Yeah.
Sizes
That's
of the
correct.
businesses, right?
My guess is ultimately there would be certain, if your business, if it ever got legs, I think the bill that you would see that ultimately came before the House and the Senate would probably have some kind of an exclusion if your company had less than, I don't know, 50 employees or less than 20 employees, similar to the way the Massachusetts healthcare law works right now. This is an initiative that the governor has really pushed forward. I don't think that the legislature will ultimately pass it. It wasn't talked about in the budget this year. It's not part of the budget this year. I haven't heard that the bill will work its way from committee up to the floor of the House. And you usually kind of have a sense of what bills are going to make it to the floor before the end of the session and which ones aren't. And if I had to guess right now, I would say that that is not one that we will be taking up this session.
But I
Always
also-
subject to change. You just never know, however.
And I also hear it's the last 24 hours that those types of things pop up as a surprise. And then August 1st, you wake up and go, what the heck happened? That came in at
Sometimes.
10:30 at night and nobody knew. So it's one of those, if you're concerned about it, speak up and speak up now.
Sometimes that happens. I'm going to be honest with you. In all the years that I've been in the legislature, there have been very, very few times that a major piece of legislation has actually popped up like that and come before the body. There's usually, I'm not going to say it doesn't get there hasn't been legislation that we've only talked about for 2 weeks, but usually 1 day or 2 days is uncommon. But Paula is absolutely right. Anytime you have an issue like that, you can never rest on your laurels, and you always have to remain vigilant about opposing any type of a bill such as that, because you never know when it could get legs. All of a sudden, if people are quiet about it, and it's completely under the radar, and people don't seem to be overly concerned with it, it can happen.
And Dan, just to clarify, because at the social chamber, that we talked about this at our last board meeting, and one of the folks who worked for Harvard Pilgrim, she's on the board, and she said, I don't understand. I get tons of sick time. I get more than I can use. Why wouldn't, this is a good thing, isn't it? Why wouldn't companies offer it?
Right.
And so it really raised a good point, because a lot of people work for someone else and they don't own their own business. They don't understand that when the government mandates something, it takes away the employer's choice to be competitive in the marketplace. So you may say, you know, we're going to be the most competitive retailer in Duxbury. That's your choice. And you say, we're going to offer health insurance, we're going to offer paid sick time to everybody. It's not mandated by the state. So when it's mandated, it now adds an extra layer of cost that you weren't necessarily prepared. But some people can't afford that. The hair salons, the nail salons, you know, a lot of these convenience stores and places like that. So we're saying it's not that it's a bad thing. People, it would be great. We'd all love to offer health and paid time off and sick time to everybody, but it becomes an economics. I mean, you may have to actually let someone go.
That's right.
In order to
Exactly.
keep.
Right.
Will unquestionably affect the hiring decisions that small businesses
Absolutely.
make if a law like that would be enacted. And let's let the market decide.
Yeah, right.
Good views too. I've got a question.
Yes.
I'm in corp, my own corp. I'm a corp of one, you know, chief, bottle washer, you name it. And I have to pay $200–300 a year for workman's comp. Yet if I'm between contracts, there's no way I'm going to file or do anything like that or go for workman's comp, because it would just take my rates through the roof.
Right.
So it'd be nice if we could have an employee opt out of workman's comp.
It's not workers' comp you're talking about unemployment. You're talking
I
unemployment.
think UI insurance is that's
Well,
federal.
unemployment is what we have to pay for our own businesses, but if we are real estate and in January and February we're not earning any money because it's quiet, we can't go on unemployment benefits.
Yeah,
I
it's
have to
UI
pay
as well. It's all the insurances. Like I personally like to opt out of UI and workers' comp, but I
Right.
can't.
Right.
You know? And they're just bills I pay every year that I know I'm never going to collect on.
Really.
That's a good point. That's something that we could certainly look at if you're a company of one. I think it would be hard if you're a company and you have employees to opt out of the workers' comp insurance, because obviously if you got somebody working for you and they get hurt,
More the employee allowing to opt
for
out,
a
right?
small
Employer.
business or a sole proprietorship, I think that's a good
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
And the unemployment issue it could be the same for the unemployment issue as well, because you're affecting nobody but yourself.
Correct.
Where it's only one person. So that's a good idea. I haven't heard that before, and I like it.
Actually, Terry, the Secretary of Economic Development was at the chamber today, and the Assistant Secretary, her husband Bill, talked to her on that exact issue. So he's going to be sending her a letter with a number of issues like that, because it becomes a problem. A lot of people stay a sole proprietor when they should become a corporation, but they don't want to pay those extra fees, and they don't want to have to get into paying all that. So if anybody wants to talk to Bill about it, he's sending a letter in so that the state becomes more aware of those types of issues.
Yeah, I know but in Quebec actually, they have different laws for small businesses up to X number of employees to really encourage them to grow quickly. But once you're in a corporation mass, they treat you like whether you got 50,000 employees or 2 employees, you're doing all the same paperwork, you're buying all the same insurances. It's just,
You're right.
it's really tough.
And on the corporate tax front, one of the parts of the Republican jobs proposal is to eliminate the minimum $450, I think, annual corporate income tax that we all have to pay to the Secretary of State's office. And there's also in the legislation unemployment reform. Massachusetts has the most generous unemployment benefits in the country. We give more weeks of unemployment. We have higher rates. And actually, I just got a call today from a woman who owns a business in Pembroke. She owns a payroll company. She calls me every year. She's up in arms for the last 3 years because after the close of the first quarter, Governor Patrick finally announced what the unemployment insurance rates will be for this particular year. And as you all know, as small businesses, you pay more of your unemployment insurance up front than you do toward the end. So you don't know how to plan for your unemployment tax bill that will come due at the end of the quarter. And she sees it up close because she's dealing with hundreds and hundreds of small businesses whose payroll she does every week or every 2 weeks. And she says it causes all kinds of problems. We've been playing this game now for 3 years with the unemployment insurance rate, and it's just absolutely counterproductive. The amount of hours and time that people in small businesses are wasting upon it when they could be outgrowing their businesses and earning money is, I do it all the time in my own business. I run a small law firm, and these little types of issues absolutely are so frustrating to small business owners, and I know it affects my ability to make money. When you have to worry about dealing with the payroll company because there's been a change in a regulation, you're not sure what it is, you've got to go and you've got to figure it out, and all the other little issues that we have to deal with because of the role that government has now taken in businesses, it affects our ability to make money.
It's true.
Yes.
Yes, on NPR today they were talking about the state healthcare having a surplus. They're going to lower the premiums back to consumers.
Right.
Where is that extra surplus coming from, first of all, and why can't other insurance companies follow suit to make it more balanced across the field?
Now, when you say other insurance companies, you mean
I mean
insurance
private
companies
insurance
for private
companies.
insurance? Okay, well, my theory on that is this. And again, Governor Patrick was at the South Shore Chamber today, and he was talking about how successful the Massachusetts healthcare law is. Well, let me tell you something. It is the biggest disaster that you could ever imagine. It has not brought down the cost of health insurance in Massachusetts. It has increased the premiums. The programs that are offered through the connector is the conduit through which the state provides insurance. The programs are extremely generous. So I always use the analogy, you can't buy a Cadillac for the price of a Hyundai. And when Governor Romney enacted or pushed forth the Massachusetts healthcare law, the idea is that it would be reasonable insurance at a low cost. It wouldn't be the Cadillac of insurance. Well, the Patrick administration has basically implemented the Massachusetts healthcare law, and the connector has been unreasonable about the types of healthcare coverage that they expect from the private insurance companies that are actually providing it. So what's happening? Because the state is forcing the private insurance companies to keep the premiums down at a level that's more affordable for state government, guess who is paying the subsidy? All of you people who are providing insurance for the people that work for your companies and for yourselves. And I mean, I could go on and on and on. I don't have to with you folks because I know you all know and feel and have experienced this firsthand. The other problem with the Massachusetts healthcare law is it encourages enrollment of people on mass health. Because before the healthcare law was passed in 2006, we had in Massachusetts what's called the uncompensated care pool, which was a pool of insurance that the state kicked into insurance companies and hospitals to take care of the free care in emergency rooms. By law in Massachusetts, if somebody has an emergency situation, they can't be turned away from a hospital. So you can only imagine that in places like Brockton, Lowell, Lawrence, Boston, Worcester, people who, poorer people who didn't have health insurance coverage were going in and having all their emergencies covered, and it was costing hospitals an enormous amount of money. The uncompensated care pool was designed to share the risk across all the hospitals in the state. South Shore Hospital didn't have the costs associated with free care that Brockton Hospital had because of their geographic location. So the healthcare law said we need to encourage people to be enrolled on mass health because the federal government pays for 50% of Mass Health. Well, guess what? We still pay for the other 50%. The Mass Health rolls have skyrocketed since 2006, and the amount of money that the state is paying for Mass Health each year since the healthcare law was implemented is growing by more than 5%, in excess of $1 billion a year. And that is unsustainable.
There's a surplus.
Well, there's a surplus. What you're talking about is the monies that they have collected through the connector, which are different than the money that goes into Mass Health, is probably more than they were probably able to negotiate slight decreases in the premiums over the last couple of years, because I think they're smartening up and recognizing that they need to make some changes in the programs, and they're finally starting to look at some of the tinkering that they promised would happen within the first couple of years of the law, which didn't. And I think that's why you're seeing the surplus. But that's completely independent from the private sector. The private sector has absolutely nothing to do with the connector. And again, my opinion is that indirectly you're subsidizing.
We're getting whacked.
You're getting whacked and you're subsidizing.
And the quality is going down. Our insurance, we keep losing things from our insurance, and we keep paying more. Every time we turn around, we have to change our policy to be able to afford the policy. We tell employees, well, sorry, now you have to pay up to $2,000 worth of your own insurance, of your own money, and then after that, then they kick in. You know, every time we turn around, we're doing something. For a while, we had $50 co-pays. You know, it's just playing a game, constant game with the insurance company, changing them right and left and hoping they'll cover pre-existing for your employees and for yourselves. It's sad.
At least in Massachusetts, though, pre-existing is, they don't turn us down in other states. If you have a pre-existing condition, you can go to another insurance company if something comes up. That is one of those incredible things that has come out of all of this. So you have, as much as I'm negative on paying a lot of money, there have been some good things that have come out of this. Because pre-existing, that should not be the reason you're turned down for insurance if you have a pre-existing condition.
The other good thing that did come out of it is, the reality of it is, and this is fact, is that close to 99% of the people in Massachusetts do have health care now. And that's a good thing. One of the things that we've never looked at, and this is what we have to do, is beyond trying to insure people, it doesn't make sense, and this is one of the few times I ever disagreed with Governor Romney, but it doesn't make sense that the more people you insure is going to drive the cost of health care down. You're all business people, you can understand how that just isn't, that won't happen. What really has to happen with the healthcare system is that, first of all, we need to open up the market. We need to create competition within the health insurance market, not only in Massachusetts, but really throughout the country. Look what happened with auto insurance rates a couple of years ago. I'll give Governor Patrick all the credit that he's due on this. He went in, the legislature refused to grab the bull by the horns with the issue of auto insurance. He went and he brought in a commissioner of insurance and he said, I want you to create competition in the market. She did it, and she did it without having to get authority from the legislature. She did it through the regulatory process, and we're all the beneficiaries of that right now. We need to do the same thing with health insurance. The other thing about health insurance is it has to become transparent. We have to disclose, you the consumer has to know exactly how much you're paying for every aspect of the health care that you receive. How much you pay your primary care physician, how much you pay the clinic if you go to the clinic, how much you're paying your insurance company, how much the insurance company is paying your doctor, what you're paying when you go to the hospital, not only for your surgery or for your care, for every pill that you take. If we create transparency in the healthcare market, we're going to become better consumers. And then if we've got more insurance companies that are doing business in our market, we're going to shop for the better insurance company. And that will naturally, I believe, drive the cost of healthcare down. Let the market do what it's supposed to do and drive the cost of it down. But government is in the way of that, and because we've passed so many regulations related to health insurance, and we've tied the hands of insurance companies and we've tied the hands of physicians, it's created an enormous problem. The other thing that we need to do on the healthcare front, and this is coming from a lawyer, is we need to reform medical malpractice laws here in Massachusetts and in the country. It's out of control. It's absolutely ridiculous. The premiums that physicians are paying that are directly related to malpractice insurance are exorbitant, and that is driving the cost of your health care up as well. And nobody wants to grab that bull by the horns either, and we need to do that.
It's sad also, though, that the insurance companies could tell you who you can and cannot see as your physician. If you've had somebody for years and years and suddenly you change insurance, oh, he's not by the plan. So a doctor you've gone to for years that you trust, you have to switch.
Right.
And then they're not taking new patients. So, you know, you're in limbo. You're in limbo. You can't find a new primary care and.
Right, and that's a product of the HMOs.
Yes.
Right.
And that's all the small businesses can't afford is the HMOs.
That's right.
The other thing that is, if you're in a position to discuss healthcare, parents who have kids in college in another state think they have a good policy, get the kid, you know, their school policy to what they need to, whatever. And then the kid comes down with something really serious like type 1 diabetes, like my daughter did. It's not covered out of state, it's not covered on the school plan. She would have to quit school to really be covered and move home. And we just kept shelling out the bucks, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. That's not right.
Right, no, it's not, and I think that is a perfect example of when it's appropriate for government to step in and do something about that, and that is similar to the pre-existing condition that you just spoke about, Ann. So, I mean, I'm not going to say that government shouldn't have any role whatsoever in healthcare. No, I don't believe that, and I think when you've got when you've got an industry that the healthcare industry really couldn't have a monopoly, but they can certainly dictate exactly how you're going to pay and what types of services that you're going to get. When you've got an industry that's doing that, government, it is appropriate for government to step in and say, okay, we got to change this a little bit. We got to be reasonable about this. We got to protect the consumer.
Dan, can you talk a little bit more? I believe it's Senator Pacheco has a bill before the legislature to raise the minimum wage.
Yes.
From $8 to $10, which is a 25% increase.
Right.
Which I would say most people aren't getting a 25% increase these days. And that is a huge burden to people who hire entry-level employees to raise that.
How many of you who are small business owners have entry-level employees that you pay minimum wage to? Raise your hand. Minimum wage. Okay. One of the things that actually shocked me today at the lunch at the South Shore Chamber of Commerce was somebody asked a question about the minimum wage bill. And Governor Patrick said, I really don't think that that's of any significance in Massachusetts because not many companies in Massachusetts pay their employees minimum wage.
Is he living here?
And I said, well, you know, it's funny about that. I just sat down at the kitchen table with my 17-year-old son last week, and he was complaining that he makes minimum wage when he works at McDonald's. So there are plenty of businesses that pay.
And that was a
minimum
horrible
wage.
example. Just because people don't pay it, we shouldn't raise it.
That's right. That's
You're
right.
kidding me.
So that shows you sometimes how out of touch
kids. Are we not
Beacon
going to hire
Hills.
kids anymore and hire adults?
Right.
They're going to be,
Right.
and they're going to suffer because
Should
if I
we
have a
be
choice of a kid or an
teenagers
adult, and
$15
I
an
have to
hour?
pay 10, I'm not going to hire the kid.
That's exactly what's going to get hurt.
That's not fair.
You have ladies like in Dunkin' Donuts, my favorite ladies over here every morning, sorry. You know I love those too. But, you know, these ladies are earning minimum wage and they're out there working 40 hours a week. Dunkin' Donuts giving us coffee in the morning and it's like.
At 5 a.m.
At 5 a.m. for
They're not
$8.75 and they're 45-year-old women.
But they're not minimum wage. If you have a 45-year-old woman who's been with you for over 2 years, it's more. And it's not because they also have tips. So their tips.
But their tips are not like right there.
They're, well, yes, they are. And you don't see that, but they are. They are.
I'm just saying, I don't know, because when you're going through drive-through, a lot of people are doing credit cards, and you don't do tips on credit cards. I'm just saying, you feel bad for these people. Every morning you see them, they become your friends, and you know they're making even under $10 an hour probably, and that's sad. Because $400 a week, how do you live at $40 a week in Massachusetts?
But if you're the employer and you have to turn around and raise that by $2 an hour, I mean, but
That's a lot of money.
again,
I know that.
but if
They're not going to hire that old woman.
I think your point is very well taken, but the rising tide lifts all boats, and the reality of it is that businesses are struggling to do everything they can do to keep their doors open right now. Every single time that government steps in and raises a tax or raises a fee or requires them to provide more health insurance or requires them to pay their employees more money, it is hurting us all in the end run because it will be that much longer before we emerge from the Great Recession that we're in
Shouldn't it
right
be
now.
based on merit, like,
Right.
like the minimum is like this, and then if she thinks that, you know, she should, that lady that's older that maybe 10
Or
years
she
ago-
wants to be, or she wants to be,
responsible.
she wants to have the best person, I don't know, with Penny
So
who
it's
worked in
choice,
town.
it's choice.
And Penny, I don't know, my husband loved Penny. Penny worked at a bunch of places. But she
Penny was
drew
wonderful.
people in.
Penny was
So you're
wonderful.
gonna pay Penny more, but she brings
And
people
we
in.
have plenty of people who make way over
Yeah.
minimum wage,
Yeah.
but they've
But
been
that's
there
your-
for a
but
few
that's your
years,
choice
and
to pay
that's
too.
our poor people.
Right.
But the kids that we hire for after-school hours and weekend work, I don't wanna pay more than $8 an hour when they start. By the time they're in college, yes, of course they're making $10 an
I
hour
don't want my
plus.
children to have that much money.
And I agree, the babysitting market is ridiculous.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Why
that-
would they bump it up so much? Like, why wouldn't they go to 9?
No, because they don't think that in percentage amounts, because they haven't ever been an employer. So they think,
Right.
oh, $2.
Right.
But that's
right,
25%.
that's a huge jump.
And
They don't think
Massachusetts
that.
pays $8 an hour is much higher than any other state, because
Right.
when people come here, they say, your minimum wage is 8, are you kidding me? We're only $6.50, we're only
Right.
$7.25.
Why
And
is
so
that
it's-
different?
What is the federal minimum wage? What's federal minimum wage?
Yeah, but it's not adulterating paying this, you're paying usually.
And can you
Right.
address that?
And that's a
Why
big
is it
issue.
different
They're
state
not
to
gonna
state
get
instead of being?
experience.
Well, because each state can set their own, I mean,
But what is the true minimum wage then?
well, there's a federal minimum wage, and I don't know offhand what that minimum wage is right now, but states have implemented their own. You would have to meet the minimum standard that the federal government meets. So your state's minimum wage would have to be at least whatever the federal minimum wage is. But states can opt to have a higher minimum wage if they so choose.
The biggest problem would be all the other employees who feel like they got a raise, and now I'm making the same as them,
Right.
even though I've been here 3 years, so you
Right.
have to bump everybody.
Everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
And you can't do that. And then you hire the doofy little dishwasher who doesn't even deserve $5 an hour. And you teach them how to sweep, and you teach them how to
No, I
do
thought I was
things.
better
and-
than that.
What's very?
What I'm expecting about right now is, as a
I know you're
person
better than that.
in a community, you see people like the Dunkin' Donuts people of French memories that are earning minimum wage or a little bit above, and you feel bad. As a business owner, you know, we're two people. We're the business owner who has to protect our businesses and protect our wages and what we're bringing in, and yet we're the people who live in the community seeing how the people earn. How do we do a balancing act? I mean, I think that's one of the biggest
You can
things.
tip bigger.
You can
Yeah.
tip, exactly.
I
You
think
can
honestly,
say, you can visit small businesses, because we
Right.
get the good ones and we bump them up quick, whereas Dunkin'
Right.
Donuts is not going to do
Right,
that. I'm
and
just
we do,
saying.
and we do bump them up.
We
And-
do.
and
Boom, boom,
there-
we lose
I
them.
don't think there's, just the brand new employees get minimum, but we want the option to give them a
Yeah.
raise. If they're worthless, we want them out the door. We don't want to get
But
them
this is
at $10 and waste their
capitalism
time.
versus socialism, another ball's going.
I think there should be no minimum wage, and I think the market will sort it out. If somebody 14 next door is doing your snow shoveling and sits around a lot, you give them $5 an hour. If you got a kid that really goes for it, like our next door neighbor, I give him $20 an hour.
You gotta pay per job in that environment.
Right,
That's-
right. If
Yeah, I
you pay
think
per
about that,
job
but,
complaint, we were
you know-
discussing mulching. If you hire a kid who gets $10 an hour, well, I'm gonna make it take 10 hours to do the
Right.
mulching.
Right.
Yeah.
Versus an adult who has other jobs to do, and you say, do the job for $100, you know, he's gonna do it in.
But I think a lot more kids would work if you had no minimum wage, because, you know, some kids would want to work for $5 or $6 an hour, and they can't employ them, and really, that's probably all they're worth when they're
Right.
15 or 16, so, I don't know, I know I'm a heretic, and I'm probably.
I think that when we were kids, that would have sounded like a lot of money, but I tell you, kids in Duxbury, not gonna work for $5 or $6 an hour.
Yeah. Well,
Not here.
then you're gonna have to pay them more, so
Exactly.
the market will determine that.
Right.
But I think you're imposing when you say you have to pay this child that you don't even know knows how to work, and you have to train him to do everything. He's never had a job in his life, and he can't even sweep. He's never done it at home, and you have to teach him to sweep. You have to teach him to wash counters. They have no clue. They have no clue, and then you're teaching them at $10 an hour. You know, if they don't make it within a few hours, if you can't see, ooh, it's not gonna work, you're not gonna give them much of a chance. You're gonna say,
Right.
get out. I'm sorry, here comes another kid.
With $4 or $5 an hour, you're gonna let the kid troll on.
You're gonna
for
give them a
while.
break, you're gonna say, oh, I can't really realize how much money you're wasting of mine, but if I'm saving $2, then I'll give you another week's trial, you know, it's.
Yeah, when I first started my business, my first contract, I had a relative who was an expert contract review it. When he saw how little I was getting paid an hour, he says, do I really even need to review this contract? It was not bad. And 3 months later, I doubled my rate. And another couple years later, I was probably 50% higher than that, you know, so.
Now you're being super usually, it's great.
But anyways, this is a story. Is there any more questions?
I have something that's a really wonderful, a thing that's very nice for people. Lieutenant Timothy Steele, can I say this? Is it okay?
Yes.
Yes, sure.
I don't know if you remember, he passed away last year on his 23rd, and they're doing a big benefit weekend on May 12th, and someone asked me to present this tonight to the DBA, and we're hoping that the DBA can do some sort of sponsorship, whether it'll be directly through our DBA funds, or it will be that each business tries to promote the event. All the funds, which is really nice, because usually when you do fundraising, it doesn't always go to the cause. All the funds go to the family. And there was a wife and a little girl left, and it's a really sad story. This was the second child in a family that died in town. And the Steeles have always been very giving, very nice people, very down-to-earth people. And so we're trying to raise money for this, and the sponsorship is a golf tournament, a race, and a dinner at Holy Family. And there's different sponsorship levels. So regardless, I was thinking that if we could get even $50 from any businesses that want to donate, then we could, as a group, get as much as we can get together and hopefully send an email out. And then we could, whatever we raise, there's different sponsorship levels, we could do it that way. And then, like, if we could get up to 1,000, it's encourage sponsor, and we could have the people from the DBA. So that's only 20 of us giving $50.
I think it's a great email.
Yeah, I'll send her an email.
You know, and then if, you know, the DBA wants to, you know, kick in a little bit extra, we can get up to the next sponsor level for 1,500. So I propose that we raise 1,000 from the membership, and then the DBA donates an additional 500 towards the cause if possible. I know the executive committee has to meet to discuss that, but
I'll second that, I'll do that idea.
yeah, I just think it's something that, you know, this is a child or a man who gave his life for all of us.
They're a great family.
And for the freedom that we do have, and, you know, we get so caught up on taxes, money, and all that things, but, you know, celebrating our 375th, I'll bring it all in, this year, brings, why did everybody come over to America? It was to have freedom, and it became more freedom, and he was fighting for our freedom.
And his daughter's name is Liberty.
And his daughter's name is Liberty.
So
So
we should rename the middle school.
and that's another thing they're trying to do. So, you know, I really would
Name
like,
the middle
I
school.
really
Never
wish,
had it.
hope that everybody here could sign the back of this with their pledge tonight, just so that I know who it is, and then I'll keep track, and we'll go as far as we can, and then give them this as a gift, so that we can sponsor it.
Terry, I think this is a great idea. We should do it.
Yeah, maybe we can do like a match or something, some kind
Right,
of
maybe we
match.
should do a match, so,
Well,
That's a
my
great
firm was
idea.
gonna take their own sponsorship. I said, my firm, we're gonna take a full, we're gonna do a whole sponsor
Well,
on
that's
their own.
fine.
Okay,
we still love you.
okay.
But,
If you wanna contact the match, you can.
yeah, well, no, we don't want to do that. I'm not your financial advisor.
Generous to a point.
We don't have anyone you're bringing in. But so if anybody would like to sign the back, if anybody would like to sponsor it, and then I'll send an email out, and I'll find out for you, and I'll send an email about, you know, where the checks go to and stuff. I think that, and it will be a, you know, if you're not playing golf or anything, then it is a full tax benefit. But contact your accountant to confirm that. I'm only a mortgage broker, and
You don't even play on TV.
Can I mention something?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Some of you, I know John Mattis got this in the mail today, but the Plymouth Philharmonic has a concert on April 28th. And Scott is actually a former board member of mine. We both work very hard on everything for the Plymouth Philharmonic. But it's actually corporate night at the Spring Pops. And Amanda Carr, who is a South Shore resident, is going to be, it's a program around her, and she'll be singing a lot of songs that you've heard female singers sing. But there's a corporate reception and soiree at 6 o'clock, and this voucher gets you a buy one, get one. So if you're interested and you want that, to buy a ticket and get a ticket for free, feel free to let me know. Some of you may get it in the mail today, but if not, I'll make sure you get one. She's a fabulous singer, and it'll be a fabulous night. It's nice to have a corporate reception beforehand and get to meet some more folks. So I know, Scott, if you want to put a plug in on the Phil. Eastern's a sponsor. Eastern has been a sponsor for a number of years, and we're thrilled about that.
Yeah, the Philharmonic I was involved with for about 3 years. One thing they really do is work a lot with the children. They have the immersion program. I have a son who's entering the school system and 3 nieces and nephews that participated. Great, much more than just the concerts. And just so you know, the concerts only paid for about 50% of the actual budget.
35.
Oh, so we're down.
35%.
35%. So it's the donations that kind of help.
Yeah. And John, your son just,
Yeah.
John, your son just sang
He
with
just
the
sang.
consortium?
Yeah, chamber singers, Duxbury High School chamber singers, and he was part of the regional chorus. Pembroke, Hanson.
About 6 communities, 225 kids just sang, and it was chilling. It was so amazing. So it's fabulous. So if anyone's interested, let me know.
I have invitations to the latest shows at the Art Complex Museum, and one in the middle actually is Duxbury Artists, and it's in honor of the town's 375th. It's amazing how many very well-known, famous, internationally famous artists come from Duxbury. So.
Guess I have a plug too.
Go for it.
Clean it up.
Yeah, get in the camera.
Oh, do I really have to get the camera?
Yeah.
I don't really want to. So sorry, camera.
It's okay.
Well, actually, next one, the Alton House is having its Speak for Thyself award dinner, and so, and actually we're graced with two of our winners actually tonight. And so there's
Speak for ourselves.
yes. So it's a really nice event honoring local women in the community and you know, their role in giving back and doing all the great things that they do, and also at the same time supporting the Alden House Historic Site. We're really trying to branch out more in the community by getting involved with educational and 375th and some of these other things. So there's a lot of different opportunities from, you know, just being a friend of the Alden House and the program booklet, and I was going to plug Dawn Reed, who's doing it as well. So I have some invitations if you'd like to come. It's a really wonderful event to celebrate this year. Pam Campbell-Smith of Duxbury, as well as Reverend Catherine Cullen is being honored. Also Janet LaBerge of Pembroke. And,
What night?
it's Friday, May 18th.
It's a dinner.
It's a dinner.
It's nice. It's a really fun event.
And also, who's the other? Alba Thompson. So I have a number of invitations here, some information. I was going to actually talk to you, Terry. I'll probably just shoot something out to everyone. But
Sure.
it's a really nice event. You know, I'll be there, so I hope that's not a deterrent. But if not, I have some here, and you can feel free to take them. And actually, were you there last year?
I was there.
Yeah, that's right.
It was a great night.
They was there for me.
We might as well plug this 375.
We might as well plug it in case I can
Tickets are going on sale in the next 2 weeks for the Duxbury 375th anniversary week. We're having a clam bake on the 9th at 6 to 11 o'clock. We just set the price today, about an hour ago, of $50.
$175.
Yeah.
Do would have pushed for that.
Please.
How much was it?
They would have been killed.
No, how much?
$50.
Oh, that's great.
Our final price. That's for a full lobster dinner.
Wow, clam bake day.
Clam bake dinner. It's going to be an old-fashioned clam bake. It is going to be an incredible evening. We have the Barnyard Dogs. The first 500 get in. The last 500 don't. We are having a town picnic. Town picnic will be on the 17th, which is Father's Day. What are you doing on Father's Day? You get a hamburger, now you get a sandwich. Why don't you get a piece of beautiful cake? And we're having music, Snug Harbor Chorus. We're having a memorial service. It's going to be at the town green, which we purchased with CPA funds. And we're using the town green. It will be a wonderful event. On the 16th, for everybody who has children, we're having, with the DSU, we're having Summerfest. It's a wonderful event for all ages of the school. They have a big event. There's a lot of kids that go to this. We are one of the main sponsors at the event for the 375. We decided instead of recreating the wheel and doing a kids event, let's put our resources where they do it best, which is the DSU. So we have a wonderful, and I love to call it birthday week, and because it is birthday week. And please come. We're hoping to have Dan. We're hoping to have you to at least a picnic.
I will
I know
absolutely
it's
be
Father's Day
there. No,
for
I
the
will
family.
definitely be at the clam bake.
Yeah,
That's my kind of politics.
yeah, it's going to be a fun event. Just get tickets early because they're going to go fast.
My office will be on the phone tomorrow.
There you go. Just I'll put some aside. But it's going to be an awesome thing. We are also looking for volunteers. Anybody who would like to volunteer to help. If you volunteer, you still pay, because we're all paying, but you still get to volunteer for an hour or so to help us, because we would love it. Especially professional volunteers, which I see right at this meeting.
Yeah,
I know. So So it's gonna be a great event, and then in the fall, we also have a candlelight series that we're bringing back to Duxbury. But my concentration right now is on birthday week.
And an ongoing lecture series
And
at the
this
Duxbury
Sunday.
Yep, Sunday. There'll be a talking by the archivist of Duxbury Rural Historical Society, Carolyn Ravenscroft, who will be talking about these letters from a Civil War nurse from here in town, and then we'll be screening the movie Glory. So that's 2 to 4. And then that, I think, is the last one, and then we'll pick back up in the fall. Now, it actually suggests August. That suggests the one in the fall is excellent. It's going to be local historian Monty Healy. He'll be talking about what's her, oh God, now it's escaping me. The Showtime series, Mildred Pierce.
Oh, Mildred Pierce, that's gonna be an awesome.
And it's just to give you a little bit of taste of it. Yeah, the idea is that if you've seen Mildred Pierce, that's on Showtime. There's a movie. There's actually
2 of them.
a couple of movies, but it's based on a woman from Duxbury who actually ran the Milepost restaurant. And he's done a really, he's done a tremendous amount of research and kind of made that connection. So if you want to hear more about it, see the movie.
And if you go to Duxbury375.com, you can look at all the events, and there's a scavenger hunt coming, and there's lots of different things coming. So just look at it.
Just mention one thing, a number of you folks mentioned about donations. Eastern Charitable Foundation, which is part of Eastern Bank, we donate 10% of our net income to the foundation, and last year we gave out about $2.5 million. So I've heard a number of donations, people interested. If you go to our website and submit a donation request and reference Sharon's name, I can't guarantee anything, but it'll be looked at.
We're sponsored by you.
Great.
Which is right. And I know we do a number of great sponsorships in Duxbury.
They do?
Well, I don't know if they'll do it, but I can tell you that. Oh, I'm going to be in trouble. As you can imagine, donation requests are up 60% over last year and about 40% over the year before. But I know we've been a big supporter of Duxbury, and I encourage you to, if you have some of these, we encourage you to submit them.
It's good to know that my Eastern Bank account is something.
Okay, I think we're going to get to the point where we'll close the meeting.
I
We're running into the 1 hour
I know,
limit.
I'm sorry.
We're running into the 1 hour
I
limit.
think everyone's
Back to
business
you.
cards. I do have a
Okay.
gift certificate to the Depot Street Market because it's a place that I love.
And you were talking about the crab cakes?
I will make them. I will.
I have everybody?
I think Mr. Webster should come to another meeting. Unfortunately, tonight it was a very light meeting.
Oh, I'm happy to do that. In fact, anytime you want, if you have an issue that
Matt?
important to me, you want to talk to me about it,
Yeah.
just let me know, I'm happy to come.
Oh, yeah, I guess you want
If anybody wants to come up to the State House and see what goes on up there, if you have an issue you want to come up and talk to me and other legislators about, just let us know and we'll make arrangements.
And I'll also say, the DBA is a member of the South Shore Chamber, and the South Shore Chamber holds these business council meetings with Marshfield and Pembroke and Duxbury. Last month we met over in Pembroke and we talked about creating utility company for those towns.
Right.
It
was
was
a really interesting
the
meeting.
best.
It was excellent.
It was absolutely fascinating. And Hanover came to hear about it too.
We did.
It was absolutely fabulous. So you guys can come to those. Please come. They're wonderful to get to know what's happening at the local level. And then please, if you want to come to the chamber, we are in a membership drive right now, but I'm happy to connect anyone. But really being connected to the business issues is so key. Because they're happening whether you know it or not.
I think there's something happening too for small businesses, the new regulations. I think that's the chamber. I think there was an invitation sent to most of us. Is that correct? Did you guys?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I know it or not.
Okay.
They may have been. But being on top of these issues is important.
Okay, never mind. I'll let you go on.
Let me ask, is there any more announcements?
For a small group, we had a lot to say.
This was one of the best meetings I've been to. Thank you.
Thanks, I appreciate you coming out.
Thank you all very much. Unfortunately, I have to go, I do have to run because I have another group in Pembroke that I'm speaking to tonight, but I'm happy to come back, or if anybody wants to come to the State House, just call, let me know. We like to do things like that, and from time to time, issues come up that are really important to you, and when you look, it looks like there's something on the legislative docket that you want me to hear about and have other legislators hear about, just let me know.
Thanks.
All right?
Thank you.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.